Plants. The Green Frontier. These are the discussions of the podcast Horticult. Its continuing mission: to talk about strange new cultivars, to seek out new flowers and plant them, to boldly garden like no one has before. All right, hello, this is Blaine for the Horticult. What's up, everybody? This is episode number 45, Plant Health Solutions. So what happened here was Brad got an opportunity to go to the Colorado Green Conference, so this is a review of that, and he goes over the latest studies, soil-borne illnesses and how to treat them, using or needing extra fungicides, and it's all through proper nutrients. That's pretty cool. And then how higher pH negatively affect chemical effectiveness. So I found that interesting because here in Utah, we always have high pH. It's just how it is. So we enjoy it. We take it with a grain of salt. All right. Well, let's get into it. Let's get it on. This is Blaine.
And this is B-Rad.
And we are the Horticult. Thanks for coming along with us. We got a big treat for you today. Brad went to the Green Conference in Colorado, and he has a report.
Yes, I
do.
do.
It was a greenhouse growers conference.
It wasn't exactly only for greenhouse growers, but it was like the newest, latest, and greatest studies and science for plant health and just new chemicals to be used in the greenhouse, but then also in the nursery, and homeowners can put this to good use as well. And so let me just kind of break it down for you. Okay, so just starting out, there was a speaker who was a well-known scientist in the industry, and without saying any names, has a consulting business and goes around the country and talks to different people and businesses and greenhouses to help issues that they may have, right? And one of the biggest issues in the greenhouse, certainly, but also in the nursery with trees and shrubs and perennials, is the soil-borne diseases. It can be quite troublesome. By saying that, I know a lot of people are like, oh man, soil-borne diseases, what is that? How do you identify that? We talked about it a little bit before, where the roots are kind of mushy and brown and actually rapid decline is the result of soil-borne diseases. Anyway, one solution that has been found to be very beneficial, solves about 90% of the problems of soil-borne disease, is a chemical. It's a quaternary ammonium, and it's kind of like, well, what is that? That's just a general term for chemicals such as rubbing alcohol. So everybody has that in their first aid kit, right? And it's good for us when we get cuts and scrapes and things like that to kind of clean out the problematic pathogens. But it's also used in several different products for the greenhouse and for the nursery, and if used diluted about 1 to 10% ratio on a regular basis, so like once a month in your pots and containers, baskets, probably not so much applied like say in your landscape. But anytime you have hard surfaces and pots and containers and whatnot, it can harbor these pathogens. And so you'd simply just water or drench with this chemical, and it can reduce the amount of problematic root pathogens and root disease. So I thought that was a really cool thing.
Well, that seems really simple too.
Yeah, super simple.
So like if you got your indoor plant that's suffering a little bit, you could take it out of the pot and look at it and check it. Like we talked about the discoloration of the root. So if it's black or brownish, then you could apply that stuff and it'll kill anything that's feeding on those roots.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And
that's pretty cool. That's way too easy.
Yeah, super easy, really simple. Now there's one pathogen in particular, Phytophthora is the name of it, and once your plant gets that disease, it's almost game over. And as plants go, they're constantly trying to produce new roots and little feeder roots to go out into the soil. A lot of the time when these diseases show up, it's because of overwatering. But actually what happens is before the overwatering occurs, the plant has dried out too far, and those little tiny micro dendritic root hairs, they get fried, they get burnt, right? Because there's not enough water, there's no osmotic good absorption, and so they get fried and burnt, they die, and the plant cannot then uptake water, so then the water sits there and sits there and sits there, which then creates the anaerobic environment. And then thus Phytophthora kicks in and it's downhill spiral from there, rapid decline. But so give that a try. For everybody out there, a couple of really good things about that chemical is it has good residual. And so it doesn't just dissipate and break down, kind of like a bleach solution. 10% bleach solution is great for disinfecting, but it's only active for a very, very short amount of time. And so this has good residual. You can dip cuttings, hardwood cuttings, softwood cuttings, and it won't compromise the ability to then root out. And then you can also soak your bulbs, so like your fall bulbs, you can soak those for 5 minutes in a solution, and it will disinfect the bulb. There's a lot of pathogens that kind of adhere themselves to bulbs after being harvested in the field. Good example, if you leave those bulbs in the box too long, then they start to rot. They start to get that powdery discoloration and rot on there. If you do see that and you're like, man, game over, I just wasted all my money, go ahead and soak them in that solution and still give it a try. You may be able to disinfect them to the point where they will then be successful.
Yeah, it makes me think about when they're in the ground though too. It's like if they're in too of a wet of a spot, because bulbs really enjoy well drained areas. So like they get all mushy, in the ground. When we're taking them out for the change outs or whatever.
Yeah.
There are some that were just like mushy, but then there were some that were like rock hard that just didn't get enough water. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a good point. Look at your environment. Look at if there's a low spot where you're planting. That may be trouble. That may be recipe for trouble as far as like the longevity of that bulb. But by disinfecting it in advance, then you're giving it just a little bit more of a chance to be successful and sprout and come up. So that's a good call. So that was a really interesting, cool concept that I'd heard and the takeaway there. Another kind of jumping to a different subject slightly that I thought was just fantastic was to reduce or avoid needing a fungicide at all. Brilliant concept is to strengthen that plant. So you have disease and fungi everywhere, right? It's all around us. There's spores everywhere, and it's just a matter of having the environment be correct for that pathogen to then set afoot and cause problems. To simply just make that plant or grow that plant or build that plant to be more strong and resilient and healthy is one really good way, a cultural way, to avoid having to use any fungicides or virucides or whatever. And it's not totally simple, but it makes a lot of sense that when you give it the right micronutrient package, and specifically calcium, magnesium, what it does is it ends up building a stronger plant through proper calcium, magnesium uptake in a plant. Basically reduces water stress. It builds stronger internal cell walls, and it builds a stronger epicuticular membrane. So it's been proven to reduce gray mold. Botrytis is the name, which is a huge problem in the greenhouse, but also pretty much anywhere when the temperatures are cool and wet. So springtime, fall, when you get a lot of rain and moisture. Anyway, thought that was pretty interesting. And one thing that ran through my head, I mean, we're talking about plants, and this is a podcast about plants. How would that be, as far as like our health, human health, building our cells and bones and structure stronger with like a calcium magnesium supplement?
Do they do that?
I don't know. I mean, they do have supplements like that, but I just thought, wow, that's like brilliant
for old people. So when they fall down, they don't break their hip.
Yeah, but
I think my mother-in-law actually got some calcium. Like she was prescribed to take calcium.
Yeah. There's a lot there that we don't even realize maybe how important that is as far as...
that kind of makes me think, though, like on a different aspect of like the micronutrients that maybe we're deficient in our lives. Like I don't know where I would get certain things that I need. I mean, we still need these things in a super small percentage, like zinc and
iron
and copper and
sulfur, boron.
Yeah, boron.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's like tests, like you could go in and be like, okay, do a blood test, but hey, I want to know what my freaking micronutrient levels are and what I should take, a little bit of this and that.
Yeah.
Well,
and so a lot of the time, so with plants, you can do like a tissue sample culture and send it into the lab, and you can see where your percentages are. But I thought that was fascinating to simply use calcium, magnesium in plants to build the structure of that plant much stronger. The cell walls are a lot thicker. Mm-hmm. So it's like a physical barrier, which seems crazy that would be able to, that's all it takes to fortify against like a disease problems and issues. And I mean, it makes sense as well when there's a plant that is fed really well and has a lot of water, grows fast, the cell walls elongate, and they're super soft, easily damaged by anything, really. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, where you're pushing them, you're stretching them, and they're taking what material they have, and they're like, oh, let's go, baby, and they're just super leggy and just not their right shape or whatever. It's like when you plant a shrub too close to a house and it's just like hanging over or whatever.
Yeah.
And to fortify it, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
Well, the two ways to do it would be slow it down, let it grow at its normal rate, so don't dump a bunch of nitrogen on it and push it.
Nitrogen and water, yeah.
There's other things, though, right? Other chemicals, growth regulators that will push growth and ones that will slow it.
That's right. Yeah, and usually we in the greenhouse, we use growth regulators to keep them more stout and tidy and build their structure a little bit stronger because of the shipping factor. You have to get them, you throw them on racks. They're getting shuffled around left and right, And with all of that movement and handling,